Tobela.
Enda.
Bova ni shadow MEC.
Ruvo
Ita mafowethu lesharp.
Rishabu.
Sharp ujani MEC.
Ngizoba right. Yeah, ngizoba right.
Yeah, ngibona ishadow MEC yakhe kuseni TV.
Uthi sedebe.
Kume. You want people to be
Hey, I think we've got information now.
before the report.
There's information. What do you need more? Haven't you sent the report?
No, you must get a report with recommendation.
No. We must act now.
Yeah, we need a report with the recommendation. We mustn't just jump the gun.
It's not jumping the gun. There's prima facie evidence now.
I get it for us to support each other for whatever remedial action the MEC must take. We need a full blast report.
No, he has to act now. I guess the other thing will follow.
I get it. Sometimes you must also understand labor relations, how labor relations work.
Yeah,
you see, you can't act prematurely and then tomorrow you regret.
No. Remember, there are conditions when you follow such.
Yeah, get your well. So we must be able to balance the whole thing. Labor relations plus what we are seeing now playing itself out.
Like what the MEC are acting no.
Yeah, go on to say I'm only serious.
And MEC, you have got enough time now. Ligi quit him. Say the game is a baby fellow.
Yeah, comes. Who is David K? I haven't seen this face. Jumela David K.
Mm-hmm.
How are you, David?
Thanks very much, and yourself?
I'm good.
Thank
are
you, sir.
Well?
I'm very well. And yourself?
I'm good, my brother.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Do I need to close my screen? I see everyone is.
Yeah, no, we're closing our screens in this platform.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Closing your screen is part of the non-pharmaceutical procedures.
Hey, Bishop.
Hey, I'm busy.
How are you, my Bishop?
I'm fine, thank you.
Hi, how are you, Comrade Fasia? How are you?
Good. How are you, Chief?
I'm good, my sister. It's weekend, but hectic.
Yeah, I know. My hands are also quite
weekend, but yeah, it's hectic.
Yeah, no, we had COCTA today and SREC oversight in libraries. Now it's education.
Hey, what will you do, my brother?
Hey.
You have taken an oath.
Yes, but we get to one of the libraries. They have no thermometers. They have no sanitizers.
Yo.
Can you believe it?
And that's SREC.
We are at wreck. We are at risk. The white car.
Yo.
Afternoon, members.
Afternoon, Chair.
Hey, the young lion. How are you, young lion?
Afternoon, Bujo.
Mfugile.
Ipukile man, asifanele jele.
Asifani mfethu. Sitalonga mntu.
No, in the Bishop.
Are you Simba?
Hey, Bishop, you can be
I hope-
notorious if you want to, man.
I hope it's not. I hope it's not Simba Chips. Yeah.
MEC, how are you?
Hello, MEC.
I'm well. Good members. I'm well. Are you well?
No, we're trying, MEC.
Hey,
Condolences to you, Bishop, and your family.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes,
MEC. Thank you so much.
Honorable Hassan. Okay, she will join us. No, I think I spoke with the chair earlier. Actually, before I could log in, I was with him on the phone. He was asking me to chair the meeting.
Okay.
you must chair.
Yeah.
So he has fired Joe and PC now.
No, Bishop, I'm the chairperson of finance. I'm not the chairperson of education.
Finance is the biggest committee. He deals with rents and cents. Eh?
Okay. No
You
problem.
see, Bishop, we must capacitate young comrades.
I hear you, sir. I hear you, comrade.
Yeah, we're giving them responsibility at a very early age, you know.
No, Honorable Bishop knows because he was trained here in this baptismal font of true revolution.
He knows. He was my student at some point being a bishop.
Yeah, you're right.
No, thanks, honorable members. MEC, the department, I think is represented by the HOD and his team, and everybody who's here. Wish to welcome you in this meeting. And let me welcome all of you so that before we waste time, maybe let's go and also acknowledge stakeholders who are today joined by many stakeholders across the length and breadth of the province who we are accountable to. I welcome all of you. Maybe let's go to apologies. I don't know, Charlene, can you take us through apologies? Thank you.
Can I forward my apology, acting chairperson?
But Joe, you may, Honorable Bishop.
I'm at the hospital at the moment, so I may mute for a while, but I'll follow the proceedings because my sister, she's going to theater tomorrow. So we are here as family. So, but I'll log in and I'll join the meeting when I come out of the hospital.
No, thank you very much, and then we hope that it all goes well with her.
Thank you.
Hope that she recovers quickly.
Thanks
your
a lot.
apology is noted and accepted. There are other apologies that we have received. There is a standing apology. Yeah. Thank you, MEC. There's a standing apology which I think the committee ought to discuss because it's now becoming a standing apology. Honorable Albert from the Freedom Front Plus has tendered his apology, and the apology reads that he will not be able to attend the meeting as he's having an in-house meeting scheduled at the same time. I've already forwarded the apology of Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Chilwane, who's writing exams. Honorable Dos Santos will also not be attending the meeting because he's writing exams. Those are the apologies that we are having, and I think we at some point will have to have a discussion about the absence of Honorable Albert in the committee because it is becoming a definite feature of our agenda item every time we get to this agenda item. Honorable Hassan, your hand is noted.
The person who's making noise.
Malungana Titi, can you mute and close your video? Thank you. Malungana Titi. Thank you. You can close your video. Thank you.
Chairperson, may I continue?
You may continue, Honorable Hassan.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to echo some of your sentiments around Honorable Alberts. I think initially, you know, there were some difficulties with his wife or the family, whatever it was. And I think we were quite reasonable at this stage, but now the reasons are different. Now it's an in-house meeting on a day in which a committee, particularly the social cluster, particularly education, was scheduled for. So I don't know how one can have an in-house meeting at the same time as a committee meeting. Otherwise, then all of this programming and all of the stuff is a joke. We can also have in-house meetings then on any day if that's how it's going to work. So I do think it should be noted. We're not unreasonable. Where there are genuine reasons, I think we are able to work around it, but you're quite correct. And I think it is something that needs to be noted that there's a consistent lack of attendance by the honourable member. And then when it comes down to it for work, he wants to then complain and raise issues, etc. But he didn't go through the whole journey of how we arrive at the end of the process. So I do want to register and support that. And I think it should also be noted in the minutes that we are taking serious issue with that. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Hassan. I also don't know what is an in-house meeting. I don't know, maybe it's because of the Queen's language, but I don't know what an in-house meeting is. Perhaps maybe we'll discuss it at some point. Honorable members.
Yes. I want to further comment, sir.
Yeah, you can come in, Honorable PC.
Okay. I think we have raised these matters continuously and consistently about these members who are not attending. And that is a problem. Because if we don't act and the chairperson doesn't act, then we are going to have a problem. You find people going into the house, want to speak on issues that we have resolved in a meeting, but they raise it as an item at the level of the sitting of the legislature. So this is a worrying thing. I think we must act. It must be noted that we do not actually take it light that members prioritize other things than ourselves, because our committee should take priority. Because this is a day for the legislature, and I consistently say that when it's a day of the legislature, any other meeting of the organization should stop, because you are paid according to what you do and what you have taken out of. And we can't have free riders in the legislature. I think this must stop. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Honorable PC. Myself and Honorable Sufi sit in what we call the programming committee. In the programming committee, we deliberately ensure that we give political parties a day in which they can be able to do their own political party work. And it's a standing day of the week. And in those days, there are no official meetings of the House that are allowed, and members are given that permission to do all the political party work. In fact, the legislature even pays for that. So those days are reserved for that. That's where you can have caucuses. That's where you can do political work and do all sorts of things. And therefore, that's why we can't have on days where committee meetings are sitting clashing with the political party work. And I think that should be noted. And we should actually, I would personally write as the acting chair to Honorable Albert, because this must be dealt with the agency it deserves. I also have not received an apology from honorable members from the Economic Freedom Fighters. And I don't know what is happening, but I've not seen them in all the committees that I sit in. Perhaps maybe there's a standing apology from them, and I don't know, committee researchers and administrators. Is there any apology from the members of the EFF in the committee? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Acting Chair. No apologies. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Thabo. There's a notable absence about them. We'll have to check what is the problem. Honorable members, thank you very much. As you will know, this is one of the standing items that we have to deal with on the agenda today, and to our stakeholders so that they know what we will be dealing with. We'll be taking a presentation from the Gauteng Department of Education on the following issues. The GDE's fourth quarterly report of the 2020-2021 financial year, the GDE's budget report on the 2021-2022 financial year. That's what the department will be presenting. Then, after the presentation of the department, we'll then take discussions and deliberations from both honorable members and the stakeholders who are here present with us. And then from there, we will then deal with the date of the next meeting, and then we'll close the meeting. I wish to then now open for anyone who wants to move for the adoption of the agenda. Thank you. Any taker for the adoption of the agenda?
I move Member Adams, Acting Chair.
Member Adams moves for the agenda.
Thanks,
Second.
Acting Chair. Thanks, Acting Chair. Second.
Honorable Muranga Panda, Honorable Mkwebo, second. Thank you very much. The agenda is adopted. MEC, I'm not sure from the department who will be leading the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Acting Chair. Thank you, honorable members, and thanks for the opportunity. We would appreciate that. Let me also welcome the stakeholders that have been invited. We appreciate your presence or indulgence. We rely on institutions like yours to understand the work of the department, whether it's fulfilling its mandate or not. So we truly appreciate your presence, and feel free to raise whatever that you want to raise with us. I'll ask the HOD to outline the presentations, and the team that will make the presentations will be guided by you, Acting Chair, if you want us to take the two presentations at once, so that we give stakeholders enough time to raise matters that they want to raise with us. But if you want us to take one presentation, pause and take questions, we are in your capable hands. So feel free to also indicate. But the HOD is going to lead our team. Thank you so much, Acting Chair and members.
No, thank you very much, MEC. I think let's take both presentations. I don't know, we'll also indulge members on that point, but I think that let's take both presentations and ask members and stakeholders to take notes as the HOD and the team will be presenting. Then we can immediately after both the reports, we can then engage the department. I don't know, honorable members, we are chairing this meeting on your behalf. Do you agree with the proposal of the MEC, which I'm seconding?
Agreed, Chair.
Agree.
Agreed, Chair. Thank you very much, Honorable Bishop. Thank you very much. I think we will take Mr. Musue, the HOD of the department, to take us through. Welcome, HOD. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Acting Chair, Honorable Makubela, honorable members, the MEC, and the stakeholders, my colleagues. Chair, indeed, there are two presentations that we have prepared. The first one is a presentation of the fourth quarter.
HOD?
Yes, Chair.
There was one thing that I forgot, and I think it will be an injustice if we don't do it. And I profusely apologize to yourself and the MEC. MEC, I don't know if you are aware, before the start of every committee meeting, on the day of the committee meeting, we engage on on unannounced school visits. And today we visited the school in Johannesburg. There are serious issues which I think we need to deal with. Perhaps, and those issues don't have to do with infrastructure. These are actually, we are working on sorting some of the infrastructural issues ourselves, engaging with the private sector and so forth. But these are issues of, and we believe that the school will degenerate into a very toxic, poisonous environment because there's a power struggle. And there's a power struggle between the principal, the acting principal. It also involves some of members of the staff. And I think it stems from the fact that the acting principal acted for far too long. And as a result, an unreasonable or a reasonable expectation was raised that he's going to come in. I know he has taken the matters, I think, to the district. They were dismissed and he escalated the matters. But I think we need to start dealing with it because now issues are now coming out on newspapers. That was one of the reasons we picked the school. Honorable MEC, the school is called War School Fakel, FAKKEL, and I think we need to intervene because we are going to have a serious problem. To an extent that you have members of the staff and others who don't acknowledge the appointment of the principal who is there, and so forth. But when we were there, both the principal and the and the deputy principal could not even sit together in one room. That's how bad it is. We need to intervene. So I thought before HOD, you come in, maybe you know that, and then maybe the department, if you need our indulgence, we can talk, we can engage you privately or even in this meeting and take you through. Thank you very much. That's all we wanted you to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Acting Chair. I think we are fully aware about the dynamics there. Maybe we might need to exchange notes or compare notes so that we can attend to the situation. But thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. I know we've sent a couple of teams to go and intervene there. But I appreciate that you also made your own observation. So we'll compare notes and then interact and resolve them.
Questions that were asked at the last committee, and we have prepared the responses. It's a 140-page report, but we will ask Margot Goldstone to take us through the report quickly. Then the second part of the report is on the budget. There are the two parts of the report. We would request Albert Cheney to give the contextual basis of the budget that has already been appropriated, and the CFO will talk to the programs that we have dealt with. In that order, Chair, if you allow, we can ask Margot Goldstone to take us through the fourth quarter report, and Albert will introduce the budget report, which CFO will deal with. Thank you very much, Chair.
Permission granted, HOD.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, MEC, HOD, colleagues, and all stakeholders. As introduced by the HOD, I'm going to be presenting the report on our performance for the fourth quarter of 2021, as well as the responses to the questions posed by the committee in relation to the report as we have submitted it. So we've provided in our report an executive summary that includes performance highlights for the fourth quarter. Here we include our matric performance. We report on the successful reopening of schools for the new academic year. We also report on the SGB elections, which were officially launched in March of this year. The executive summary also highlights some of the challenges encountered during the quarter, and they include the impact of COVID on schooling and the resultant loss in teaching time, challenges around remote teaching and learning, challenges pertaining to our infrastructure delivery under COVID conditions, limitations on the further expansion of schools of specialization, and that essentially are the set of key challenges and highlights for the quarter of 2020-21. With regard to the request for intervention, in the quarter, we did not seek intervention from the legislature on any matters. As per our non-financial performance or our performance as per the targets in our annual performance plan, we had a total of 53 indicators and targets which we had set for the year, 7 of which were not applicable. Of the remaining indicators, so of the remaining 46, 43 of those indicators were achieved by the fourth quarter and 3 were not achieved, which equates to an overall achievement level for quarter 4 of 93.5%. Now, Chairperson, as we move into some of the detail of our performance, it's just important to note that this quarter 4 achievement was reported prior to our final verification for the year. So some of the actual achievements for the fourth quarter would have been adjusted as part of our final year-end validation and reconciliation, as would be reflected in the forthcoming annual report. So while we report that we've achieved and even exceeded the vast majority of our targets, there are 3 areas where we have underachieved. And those are specifically the following. In program 1, let me just get there. In program 1, which is administration, the indicator relating to the percentage of female employees in top management, we had projected that 44% of all top management officials would be female. By the end of the fourth quarter, we only achieved 42.1%. And this is due to various factors. These factors include contract termination by female employees, retirement of female employees, as well as the death due to COVID in 2020-21. And this led to us not being able to fill those positions by the end of the fourth quarter. The next 2 areas where we have not achieved our targets are on program 7. If I can just get there. On program 7, indicator 7.6. The percentage of learners who passed the NEC exam. Now, we know that we performed very well in the NEC exam, having achieved the 2nd position provincially, 2nd position nationally of all provinces. However, we had set a target for the financial year of 87.24. So in 2020, we achieved an overall pass rate of 83.75, which is an underachievement. The other area also on the matric exams, so we typically track on the matric exams what percentage of our grade 12 learners achieve 50% or more in mathematics as well as in physical science. In maths, we achieved our target and we actually had a target of an achievement of 30.54% in relation to our target of 29.77. But in physical science, we projected just over 43%, of our grade 12 learners would achieve 50% or more. However, we only realized an achievement of 33,48. So, Chairperson, that in summary concludes our non-financial performance for the fourth quarter. But it's important, and I just would like to raise it here, that in addition, and though it's not reported here, our final verification results actually show that there have been some adjustments to the actual achievement by year in particular in two programs, in Program 6 and Program 7. So I won't go into the detail here, but just to note that the progress as reported for quarter 4 is preliminary and does not reflect the final outcome for the financial year. Chair, our performance verification, our in-year processes for verification and validation of performance information has not changed. So the process as described here is what we continue to follow in quarter 4. On capital projects, we've provided a detailed listing of progress of each of our capital projects in the infrastructure delivery value chain. On our financial performance, Chair, if we look at our overall performance for the year to date, as at quarter 4, we had spent 97% or 51.2 billion of the 52.8 billion which is allocated to the department. So that results in 97% having been spent by the end of quarter 4. In terms of the quarter 4 projection, so if we only consider what was projected for quarter 4 versus what we had spent, we had projected 11.9 billion to be spent, and we had overspent on the quarter 4 projection to realize 113% spend by quarter 4, and so we'd spent 13.4 billion. So this results in an overall overspend by quarter 4 of 113%. Chair, the next couple of slides deal with our progress, the reasons for the under or overspending in the various programs. So for Program 1 on administration, we indicate that the overspending on current payments is mainly due to accruals in relation to certain areas of security services, data lines, and operating leases, which were settled in the fourth quarter. On our early childhood development program, underspending is mainly due to schools having reopened late, as gazetted by the Minister for the 2021 academic year, which affected a number of activities there. On infrastructure, we note that there is an underspending, but it is offset by accelerated spending in the previous quarters. On the exams and education-related services, Program 7, we also realized an underspending, and this is largely due to the fact that the exams which were supposed to take place in May and June of 2020 were then consolidated with the December exams. And then we also indicate the areas in which payments have in fact been made under this program. Finally, we indicate that the year-end process will utilize the provisions of the PFMA to address any of the areas of overspending which we've indicated above. Furthermore, that rollover process will further be utilized to shift funds from last year to the current financial year. And this is allowed in terms of the PFMA. If we consider our spend for the fourth quarter or by the fourth quarter on GIODI, which is Gender, Youth and Disability, essentially we had directed our spend, 12% of our total spend by the fourth quarter to women, youth and people with disabilities. Of that 12%, the bulk of it went to women-owned enterprises at 9.3%, followed by youth at just under 3% and people with disabilities at 0.08%. Chairperson, in terms of our the percentage of our total expenditure that went to township economy enterprises, we had spent 5.64%, which is 2.2 billion of our total expenditure for the year. And then just to summarize, we further indicate that a major impact on our over and underspending was the impact of COVID regulations on our ability to spend, which translates into, which comes from our ability to actually implement certain programs during the year. So a lot of the activities that would have been funded that relied on face-to-face contact, for example, face-to-face training sessions, face-to-face conferences, would have been affected by the COVID regulations, which restricted contact and restricted the numbers that were permitted to meet. Furthermore, we indicate in respect of the payment of service providers within 15 days and 30 days, that 97% of all invoices, all valid invoices received within 30 days were in fact settled, and 84% of all valid invoices received within 15 days were in fact settled within 15 days. Resolutions and petitions management. So we'd received a total of 3 resolutions from the legislature during the reporting period, all of which were resolved and submitted and reported by the required deadline. On public engagement, we undertook a range of activities. Highlighted here are just a few of them. So we had quite a number of engagements with the media, either through media queries or through interviews with the media. And the issues in the fourth quarter, which would have been January to March, mainly related to online admissions, PPE, SGB elections, the payment of youth brigades, 2020 matric results, and school vandalism. We also engaged stakeholders through our WhatsApp inquiries, which mainly pertain to the issues around matric certificates and online admissions. In terms of the empowerment of women, youth, and people with disabilities, on gender or issues pertaining to women's empowerment, we primarily focused on our activities in the fourth quarter on mainstreaming of gender and disability. We also strongly focused on issues around sexual harassment as well as gender-based violence during the quarter. In terms of youth, we continue to support learners and youth with bursaries, with opportunities to be placed in learnerships as well as experiential learning. The whole issue of youth brigades and educator assistance contributed hugely to our response to supporting youth during the quarter. On disability, our focus was primarily on supporting visually impaired educators in our schools. On the request for information from the Auditor General, during the quarter we had not received, which would be the fourth quarter, we had not received at that stage any requests from the Auditor General. There were also no requests for information from the Public Service Commission during the quarter under review. In terms of our capacity, we are required also to report on the status of our vacant posts. Here we indicate that by the fourth quarter, we had a total of 96 posts on the structure, 96,000. The total number of posts that were filled as at the last day were 87, so that's 87,000, which is about 90%, leaving us with a total of about 8,000, just over 8,000 vacant posts by the end of the fourth quarter. In terms of acting positions, there were 266. Terminations amounted to 5,449. New appointments amounted to 3,841. I'm now going to proceed to the questions and responses as posed by the committee. There are about 20 questions. I hope I can do justice while keeping the report quite brief. Chairperson, the first question we were asked to respond to was around the question of the number of alleged illegally operating independent schools that were visited. Here we indicate that 7 of the schools which we reported were illegal schools were visited during the period under review. We've listed the schools as well as indicated their locations. We further confirmed that those learners have been placed by our district directors. Those learners have been placed in alternative schools on account of the work that we had undertaken with these schools that were illegally operating. We were asked to report on the number of applications received for both home education as well as for new independent schools. With regard to home education, we indicate that 978 applications were received, of which 900 were approved and 78 are still in progress. With regard to the new independent schools, 46 applications to register these schools were received. Of the total applications we received, we found that 10 were fully compliant, 36 were not fully compliant, they still had outstanding documentation, and we advised them accordingly. 8 of these schools did then submit their outstanding documentation, and the balance of 28 we have since issued with decline letters on account of non-compliance. To conclude the process with those who do comply, we will be undertaking site visits in June, so starting from next week, and then conclude on those applications. The next question was for us to report on the number of vacancies identified in the quarter in both district and head office and the plans to fill such vacancies. Here we give a breakdown of the head office and district vacancies, so you will see the levels, but you will also see the stage in the recruitment process, and most of the anticipated appointment dates are the 1st of October, which implies that they are quite at an advanced stage in terms of all the processes that need to be concluded before that. In total, in head office, we had 108 posts, which to date have already been advertised. District officers, similarly, we've given the breakdown of the post levels as well as where they are in the recruitment process. Most as well anticipated to be completed by the 1st of October. In total, 226 district office positions have been advertised. We were asked to report on how much has been set aside for the filling of those vacancies. Here we indicate firstly that all vacancies are funded, so they are budgeted for. A total of 3 million has been budgeted in the financial year for the advertisement of all these funded vacant posts. A further 1 million is made available for processes around verification, which is critical part of our recruitment, which would involve things like competency assessments for SMS and MMS members. Okay, and then we also indicate that obviously they are at various stages of the recruitment process, and that the recruitment plan, which we issue every year and which directs us in terms of how we will go about filling all funded vacancies, addresses vacancies in terms of all post levels. We were further asked to indicate the aggregate time when posts that have been vacant are filled. This is at both district and head office, and we indicate that the aggregate time is 12 months. We were asked to provide clarity on the apparent discrepancy in what we reported as the number of primary schools offering grade R. And we indicate, we apologize, and we indicate that the correct number is 33. We were asked to report on the number of schools that were closed during the quarter under review as a result of COVID-19 and the respective days lost per school. Here we provide the individual schools, and now we're talking about January to March, which would have been term 1 of the new academic year. We've indicated the schools that were affected by school closures, as well as the number of days and then the district in which they are located. You will see from this listing that most of the schools closed for between 1 to 3 days, which is in line with the standard operating procedures as agreed with the Department of Health to ensure that the schools are properly sanitized and that all precautions are taken to ensure the safety of learners, of teachers, and our support staff. In some cases, you will see schools have been closed for up to 9 days, which would include instances where school closes multiple times. So it could be 1 to 3 days in 1 week, and then a couple of weeks later, another 1 to 3 days, which accounts for what would seem to be relatively high numbers, up to 8 or 9 days in the quarter. We were asked to provide an overview of the kind of grievances being handled in the quarter, and we had reported a total of 155 grievances that were in the process of being handled in Q4. Of the 155 grievances, most of them pertain to recruitment processes, so the filling of posts, which makes up about 2/3 of all grievances that we reported, followed by issues around unfair treatment, 43 out of the 155, and then the balance being made up of leave and transfer application approvals, disciplinary matters, and salary matters. We also indicate the process with regard to the 155. So about 1/3 have been finalized, and the balance, the 2/3, are still in the process of finalization. We were asked to indicate the overall budget utilized for the overachieved targets in respect of Program 2. Here we indicate that unfortunately we don't have the systems as provided by National Treasury to report on over or underspending on individual indicators and targets, but we can give an indication in terms of the overall project budget overspend, which was in the region of just over 1 billion rand. We were asked to provide a list of schools with multi-grade classes in the province. And so we've provided a list of data, and this is data drawn from our electronic school-based system, our SASAM system, and which is yet to be verified. And you can see the listing here includes the number of multi-grade classes in those schools that do have multi-grade classes. So most of them have between 1 and 2, but you'll see in a couple of schools, very few of them, we have 1 or 2 schools, we have up to 8 or 10 multi-grade classes in those schools. We were asked to indicate whether the 3 independent schools that ceased to exist were previously funded. So we had reported that there are 3 independent schools that no longer exist, and we confirm here that all of the schools, and we've listed the schools, were not funded by the department and were categorized as unsubsidized. We were also then asked to indicate whether those schools operated legally in terms of the applicable rules. We here confirm that indeed these schools were operating legally. We've provided the registration numbers for those schools as well as the date of registration of the schools. We were asked to indicate whether any monitoring visits for homeschooling were conducted during the period under review and what the findings were. So we've introduced a virtual monitoring process for home education. And through this process, we sampled 30 home education sites, 21 of which participated in our process and were able to populate and resubmit to us the virtual monitoring instruments. Only 2 of the schools we had some problems with. There was some resistance, but we've worked with those parents to ensure that ultimately they do comply. We were asked to indicate reasons that were furnished for a request by one school to no longer receive a subsidy. So we had reported that one of the schools said they would no longer like to be a subsidized independent school. And when we inquired, we found that the school said that the process around being a subsidized school, they found to be administratively cumbersome. So we have, through the head of department, undertaken the process to formally remove them as a subsidized school, and the process should be completed by the end of July. The school in question is Queenswood Christian School. We were asked to indicate where the 30 youth are placed for formal learnership programs and the length of such placements, and we reported the 30. So we indicate that, first of all, it's a GCRA PSETA apprenticeship that is in question, that the youth were based in Midrand under this Ifihlile Training Academy program. Of the total of 33 youth, 24 have to date completed the requisite trade test, and the remainder will have a chance to do so as the program has been extended by a year due to the COVID pandemic. On the next question, we were asked to provide a progress report in respect of the migration of functions of early childhood development from the Department of Social Development to the Department of Education. Here we give quite a detailed report on the activities undertaken to date. So the governance structures have been put in place. We have a steering committee which consists of both of the provincial departments together with provincial and national treasury, as well as the Office of the Premier. We have established 7 technical work streams that are focused on various areas or various streams that will ensure the successful migration of the function to the Department of Education. And these are chaired by senior officials from each of the departments, including, and they would focus on areas like legal, financials, on HR, on infrastructure, on program implementation, to mention but a few. And this is just to indicate some of the work that has been undertaken. In particular, there's quite a lot of work that has been done by the OD work study group as part of the HR work stream, which sought to confirm the kind of capacity that would be required for the migration to successfully happen under education. The department was requested to report on how the identification and screening of learners with possible learning barriers is being conducted under COVID conditions. Here we indicate that the screening for grade R and grade 1 learners is based on observation by the teacher of the grade R practitioner, or the grade R practitioner, that the assessment of those learners are done in full compliance with all the standard operating procedures pertaining to COVID-19. So all safety procedures are in place when that screening happens. But we further indicate that a lot of the processes around the screening have now become electronic. So, for example, once a school detects areas of concern with a particular learner, those issues are then referred to the district-based support team through an electronic or an ECS form. And then also the support to teachers given is through virtual meetings, where there is an analysis by the special education team that there are particular support needs which are recurring amongst our learners. Typically, they would hold a webinar, which would be of which the participants would be teachers who are supporting learners in grade R and grade 1 with special education needs. We were asked to provide a progress report on the placement of learners since the last report that we had provided to the committee. Here we confirm that that all learners who applied through the online admission system for grade 1 and grade 8 were in fact placed, and that parents have had that confirmation. This amounts to 276,046 learners that have been placed in grade 1 and grade 8. A big part of what made this placement possible was the fact that we, through additional funding, delivered mobile classrooms to schools to create additional spaces where schools experience pressure due to a lack of learning spaces in those schools. And also just to indicate that over and above the grade 1 and 8 placements, we also experienced a very high volume of placement requests for learners in the inner grades. So not grade 1 and grade 8. A total of just over 5,000 inner grade applicants were placed. We were asked to provide a report on the vacancy rate of school management teams in schools and to further indicate the average number of days vacancies existed for SMT posts. Here we indicate that we had identified just over 1,000 SMT posts in schools during the fourth quarter, which was a vacancy rate amongst SMTs of 7%. These posts have since been advertised, and it is anticipated, if all goes according to plan, that by the 1st of August, those posts will have been filled. The average number of days those vacancies exist is 90 days, or just about 3 months. And the final question was on the progress made in respect of the payment of youth that were placed in schools, especially during April. Here we indicate that the department paid the youth placed in schools through the transfer of funds to the schools. So this was part of the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, which was initially intended to be concluded by the end of March. But due to the fact that we still had funds that were not spent, we were able to extend the program until the end of April. We had transferred 96.2 million for the payment of stipends for beneficiaries, youth beneficiaries in this program for the month of April. Chair, that concludes the presentation on the fourth quarter. The remainder of the presentation is the detailed performance, but I would like to conclude there with your permission, Chair. Thanks very much.
Chair, with your permission,
No. Thank you very much, HOD.
I wanted to allow us to get Albert to deal with the first part of the budget process and CFO to deal with the figure issue and the priorities.
Permission granted, HOD. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, MEC, HOD and colleagues. Just waiting for the presentation to load. Thank you, Chair. Just to indicate the overall approach that we've taken is in respect of the 2020-2025 strategic framework. I think we are still committed to the vision and mission, and I think our programs are aligned. And so we are aligned to the national framework, both in terms of the NDP as well as GGT 2030. There are 5 key strategies that we're rolling out. The one is on ECD, which is basically the migration of the ECD function, as well as grade R. Strategy 2 is about improving quality of learning across all grades, and then to also deal with the issue of technical and vocational education. Strategy 3 is to deal with safe schools, to deal with social cohesion, non-racism and non-violence in schools. Strategy 4 is about changing the landscape, which includes dealing with small schools, schools of specialization, the refurbishment of infrastructure, the building of new infrastructure, and strategy 5 is dealing with youth development and youth employability. In respect of these 5 aspects, they are 20 priority areas that we have put in terms of outcome 1, which is the children completing grade R, is to complete grade R and nationally to begin the introduction of grade RR. In terms of quality education across all classrooms, it's about the foundations in the GT phase, defending the crown, schools of specialization, improving on the performance of learners in national, regional, and international tests, and then skills for the changing world, including technical high schools, ICT and e-learning, and then also to increase access and the quality of programs in Altsen schools. In respect of safe schools that embody social cohesion, it's about safe schools and social cohesion in schools, school sports, school health, anti-drug programs, girl child support and guidance programs, and pro-poor interventions. Changing the landscape, it's about rationalizing and repurposing undersubscribed schools, dealing with twinning of schools and resource optimization, improving the school infrastructure as well as available learning spaces, and then to reposition principals and educator development in a way that promotes better quality in schools, greater stability, and to work towards eliminating poorly managed schools. And then to support SGBs, to support the improvement of quality, and then to deal with labor disputes more effectively, and to essentially deal with a lot of conflict that happens at school level in a very effective way. The strategic focus for the year under review, I think, is aligned to the COVID-19 impact, and that is to begin implementing the multi-year curriculum recovery. Even though we've lost time at the beginning of this year, the school calendar, the number of school days have been adjusted to comparable numbers, and the calendar had been amended. And so we are moving on the multi-year curriculum recovery. We're trying to best do this in the context of classes still rotating. And then we are dealing with educational outcomes in lower grades. We're particularly focusing on the foundation phase, and we're focusing on getting reading right, as that is the basis for all acquisition of knowledge in later grades, including mathematics. The ICT and e-learning, I think we tabled a detailed response to the committee on how we're repositioning ICT and e-learning to compensate for the impact of COVID-19, and that will be to improve on the availability of digital resources, as well as ensuring that we are distributing online learning through broadcast facilities, and that we would basically start in the third quarter. And then it was reported in the last presentation, is the issue of the elections around the governing bodies, but it is now about the induction of the governing bodies and getting the capacity building program in place to ensure that SGBs are capacitated to execute their function. And then to focus on the issue of school infrastructure, mainly around dealing with admissions in high pressure residential areas, and then also to deal with maintenance, additional classrooms and new schools, and to ensure that we complete the rehabilitation of classrooms for the conversion to ICT readiness. And then dealing with COVID-19, I think we went into a maintenance phase around that from the beginning of the year. We are now beginning to lay the basis for the return of all learners in the primary schools from the third quarter. And I think we're going through a planning and execution process as we speak right now to ensure that we can contain the spread of the virus in schools by ensuring there is compliance with the protocols and the directives that have already been issued. Actually, I think that covers the context within which we're doing this. I think in the last presentation, we did give a detailed view of the sort of APP and the target framework. I think this is just a context to say that the budget that we've now going to table will show its alignment to these particular priority areas. Over to the CFO. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Good afternoon, Honourable MEC, Honourable Chairperson, members, and stakeholders. I'm going to take you through the budget trends for the 2021-2022 MTF, and also then focus on the questions relating to the budget for the current year that was posed by the committee. In terms of the allocation for 2021-2022, the total budget of the department is 53.4 billion, which comprises of 95% of the equitable share and 5% of the conditional grants. If one looks at the overview of the budget for the MTF, you'll notice that in the current year, the budget has shown a decrease, basically due to the cuts in terms of compensation for employees. And when we get to another slide, I will show that to the committee again. So the total average increase of the budget is about 2.5% over the MTF. If one looks at the areas that is budgeted for in terms of the economic classification, you'll see that transfer payments comprises about 11.5%, where and goods and services about 13%, while payments on capital assets is 2.2%, just over 1 billion rand, and the balance of 72% is in relation to compensation of employees. So in terms of compensation of employees, as I've indicated to you now, you'll see that in the current year, 2020, 21, as well as in the previous year, we've seen quite a significant cut, of which the budget of the current financial year is having the biggest cut of about 1.5 billion rand, and the balance of the overall cut was in terms of payment of for capital assets. In terms of compensation of employees, the decrease then represents 3.8% decrease of almost 1.5 billion. In terms of goods and services, the appropriation of 6.4 billion went up to 7.1 in the 2021-22 financial year, and therefore a nominal value increase of 617 million, which represents 9.5% of the a 9.5 increase from the previous year. In terms of transfers and subsidies, we've have an increase in the appropriation from 5.2 to 6.1. So you'll see that the focus is fairly core business, and one will see then if you look at the MTF that is going to increase to an additional allocation of about 1.4 billion in the MTF. In terms of payments of capital assets, that is the second area where we've seen a decrease from 1.3 to 1.1, which is 145 million rand decrease based on project readiness. In terms of the budget growth overall, I think I just wanted to highlight to the committee again that we've had a steady increase in the budget, and then the current year has seen a decrease due to the impact of the 1.5 of compensation of employees, but will then increase again after this for the MTF. If one looks at the budget per program, I think the administration represents about 8.05%. Public ordinary schools is the core business, and therefore takes about 72% of our overall budget, followed by public special schools with a total of 8.9%, and independent schools just about 1.8, almost 2% of the budget. Early childhood development currently is still low, but one will see about a 700 to a billion rand increase in the outer years. Currently, it is about 2.4%, 1.2 billion of the total budget, and then infrastructure representing 3% of the overall budget. Chairperson, I've spoken to those items, and I'm going to skip the slides with regards to the different programs and concentrate on funding the priorities. In terms of our priorities, as alluded by Albert, I just want to quickly take the committee through the funding of I don't know what I did now, but I changed my view. Sorry, Chair. I changed the view. Now it's significantly smaller. Okay. I'm going to, if you can just help me and take control, Ali, I'm just going to follow it on my slides because this is so small on my screen now I can't read it. Just in terms of the priorities, Chairperson. In terms of strategy 1, early childhood development, we have allocated 362 million rand towards ECD. In terms of priority 1, which is the completion of the universalization of grade R and the beginning preparations for the introduction of grade R is then incorporated into that allocation. In terms of strategy 2, the strategy 2 is promotion of the quality education across the classrooms and the schools. And you'll see that priority 2 is concentrating on the foundation phase and the strengthening of grade R to 9, which includes primary school language maths intervention, as well as language, improving literacy and numeracy in the foundation phase, language and maths in the intermediate phase, as well as the improving of language in the senior phase, as well as the first additional language, as well as mathematics that will focus on grade 9, an allocation of 51.8 million rand in terms of that. In terms of priority 3, defending the crown, it has been allocated 837 million rand. The main allocation here is for LTSM, but it's important to note, Chair, that of that 545 million rand that is allocated to LTSM, 308 is allocated to ICT LTSM. So one doesn't have a specific line item just for ICT. It's accommodated in all the different programs, and therefore you'll see that we highlight where it is included and what it is included for. In terms of SIP, which is concentrating on improving the grade 12 pass rate, as well as bachelor rates and FET phase, we have allocated respectively 186.5 and 105.5 million rand. In terms of the provision of provincial, national and international learner assessments, that is mainly exams, the allocation is 297 million rand, and skills for the changing world in the technical high schools has been allocated 58.8 million rand through the Maths, Science and Technology grant. In terms of strategy 2, where we promote the quality education, priority 7, fourth industrial revolution in terms of ICT and e-learning, you'll note that we have allocated just over 1.1 billion rand to improve curriculum delivery in classrooms, the integrated strategy for online endeavors, the building of teacher capacity, digital literacy, as well as ICT skills, and embedded strong integrated ICT systems. In terms of the priority 8, which is the expansion of the access to special schools and improve the quality of learning programs for special education, we have included 72.059 million rand for that priority. Strategy 3, in terms of the creation of a safe schools that incorporates social cohesion, patriotism and non-violence, we have allocated 173 million to school safety program and 133 million towards the improving of the condition of learning. Priority 10, Chair, in terms of school sports, has been allocated 38.7 million rand. In terms of priority 11, which is school health, anti-drugs, girl child support, as well as guidance, we have allocated 2.4 million rand towards school health, 85.3 million rand towards psychosocial support. HIV and AIDS grant has received 33.8 million rand, and then in improving nutrition in the schools, that is both equitable share as well as grant, has been allocated 1.3 billion, and then increased access to schooling, which is basically scholar transport, has been allocated 1.3 billion as well. In terms of the changing the landscape or to accelerate the quality learning, the project and in terms of priority 12 is the twinning as well as resource optimization of small schools and normalization of grade structures of schools. We have allocated 32.9 million towards the facilitation of macro education planning and to ensure that there's alignment between statutory mandates, plans, budgets, as well as resource allocation, and 75.3 towards the prudent spending in the department, ensuring expenditure according to the plans as well as cash flows, and then payments within 30 days. Priority 13 is looking at the improving of school infrastructure. There's adherence to norms and standards, and I think one of the questions also relates to some of these norms and standards, and we will get to that when we get to the questions. We've been allocated 1.7 billion rand in this regard. It includes school maintenance as well as the in-school infrastructure grant, expanding public integrated grant of 2.5 million. The infrastructure grant is 1.5 billion. And then also it incorporates school furniture, which is 124 million, as well as infrastructure planning, implementation and monitoring of just over 16.6 million rand. In terms of strategy 4, priority 14, in terms of the repositioning of educator development support, you'll see the educator development component, which comprises of pre-service training as well as quality teaching and learning through the focusing of components on ICT, as well as circuit support to teams and subject advisors has been allocated 198.8 million rand. And again, there's 24.1 million rand that's specifically earmarked for the teaching and teacher development in terms of ICT. In terms of priority 15, the increase in intensity of the SGB support and advisory work is allocated in terms of QLTC, which is Quality Learning and Teaching Campaign, as well as the SGB and RCL development, and that has been allocated just over 55 million rand. Priority 16 focuses on the improvement of school support and also labour dispute resolution mechanisms, and has been allocated 233 million rand. The district and office support will be repositioning to give deep and direct support to schools and school management, as well as virtual teams, and that portion is 150 million rand, while the role of HR and finance will be a central function that will enhance ICT of 83.7 million. In terms of priority 17, Chairperson, the education disputes and implementation resolutions has been allocated 140 million. Strategy 5 is looking at the Gauteng youth development, as well as the programs that will be focusing on increasing youth employability. A total of 633.2 million rand has been allocated in that regard. The Master Skills program in priority 18 and alignment to the required fourth industrial revolution takes 355 million of that share, and then priority 19, which is focusing on bursary as well as targeting poor and critical skills, will be allocated 308 million rand in terms of the allocation. If, with your permission, I can then move to the questions, Chair. The first question that was posed by the committee wanted to know if the department has now built enough capacity to ensure adequate monitoring in terms of independent schools visits. And the departmental response is that the department has built capacity. We've also advertised 16 posts in November 2020, 3 education specialists, Chief Education Specialist CES posts, as well as 13 Deputy Chief Education Specialists GCS posts was advertised. The process of filling the post commenced in March 2021. All the recommendations have been made. The appointment date is expected to be 1 June, and also monitoring will be done at district levels by subject advisors over and above these appointments, as well as circuit managers and the assessment and examination officials, as well as EMIS officials. The district offices are also added resources in terms of monitoring the independent schools. The second question that was raised by the committee requested us to indicate the immediate plans towards the full realization of universalization in terms of grade R by 2021, and also taking the slow response of schools to offer grade R into consideration. What we've indicated, Chair, is GDE registers the grade R learners in ECD centers that are around the schools and do not have space to accommodate the mobile structures. ECD centers with grade R are subsidized on the curriculum resources and support with curriculum implementation, and practitioners from the ECD centers are included in the capacity building activities to improve their content and pedagogy. In terms of question 3, I think question 3 related to the eradication of asbestos structures, and not the question that is there. I think we've made a copy and paste error. In terms of the education's commitment towards the eradication of mobile and asbestos structures in the province, we are staying deeply committed. We've had discussions with there was decisions by the Gauteng Executive Council, EXCO, and we've approached the market with a bit of an unprecedented move to raise funds that will see the complete eradication of mobile and asbestos schools before the end of this term. So we've embarked on a partnership between ourselves, Treasury, as well as Gauteng Department of Infrastructure. Through a PPP, we are trying to implement utilizing Gauteng Infrastructure Financing Agency, GIFA, in order to fast track the implementation of these schools. With regards to the current progress on schools, I think 4 schools have been completed. That includes Everest, Paul Masaka, Onverwacht, as well as Noordgesig. With regards to the current progress in terms of implementation, we have 14 schools in the implementation phase, and they are listed there for the members. Most of them are inception, and some of them are already in construction, and the design has been completed. In terms of, I'm hearing myself now. In terms of the current progress towards the schools in planning phase, we've indicated the 11 schools that is currently busy with their feasibility studies, and that will be incorporated into the GIFA process. Then what we were requested, Chair, to indicate is the plans to complete LG Golele secondary school hall project, as well as the classes that's damaged due to fire. And then we've indicated that the school name has since changed to Gatuntle Secondary School. And then we've provided some background with regards to the renovations. We've also indicated the company that was appointed and awarded the contract to undertake the renovations, as well as the construction of the nutrition center, construction of the guardhouse, external works, as well as electrical and mechanical works. And this follows the underperformance of the previous contractors, which we have terminated. GDE also, GDID is also disputing the liability in terms of the content that the contractor owes the department to the amount of 2.6 million rand, and instructions have been sent to the state attorney in order to defend the same that has been filed. Chair, in terms of the response continued, in terms of the newly appointed professional team, has also done an assessment of the facility and included in the scope, additional to what I've already included, the completion of incomplete works the repair of the burnt classrooms, as well as the construction and of the refuse yard, construction of the sport facility, as well as the upgrading of the current sport facilities, perimeter fencing, as well as walkway canopies. The project is currently at project execution phase PP4A, which has been conditionally approved by the GDE. GDID is working on finalizing the last stage. Chair, I think that concludes the questions that was posed by the committee, and then also concludes the presentation from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. HOD, I don't know if ever you want to add anything.
Chair, I think the team has done well. We will take questions.
Honorable members, thank you very much to the department led by the MEC and the HOD, and thank you for the patience of our stakeholders who are connected online and those who are also streaming through other virtual platforms. Thank you very much. I will want to maybe firstly start with the stakeholders. Stakeholders, kindly feel free to raise your hand. If perhaps maybe you are struggling with the function of raising a hand, kindly feel free to unmute and ask, say your name, and then I will note you and tell you when you can speak. Stakeholders. Committee team, how many stakeholders do we have? Are you able to see who's raising your hand? I might be struggling. I did not even see the presentation. I might not be able to see who has raised their hand from the stakeholders. Maybe if you see, can you also alert me? Thabo? Okay. I think the report intimidated stakeholders. Allow me to ask members of the committee to then raise their hand and make their inputs. Members of the committee, it's your turn to speak. I see the hand of Honorable Ramorefo. I see the hand of Honorable Hassan. Honorable Ramorefo, you can come in. Thank you.
No, thanks, Chairperson. My question will be with regard to the budget. We've noticed under expenditure, which from a distance one may think that it's not really a much, but when you look at it, like the last financial year, the department underspent about 1.6 billion rand. Is there a way, which department is putting in place that, when you get allocated budget, you actually utilize the entire budget rather than returning the money back? For example, when you look at, challenges we still have, like your asbestos, your dilapidating school infrastructure, and in return, the entire budget equivalent to school infrastructure budget get underspent. So for me, it doesn't really make sense, especially when we get to adjustment process to say, don't you have a mechanism which will then tell you that here we're going to underspend, let's then readjust the budget from what we have allocated initially so that we don't really return this money back. I just want to understand if there's some plans or programs which are put in place going forward so that we don't have these things every year that, we have under expenditure of more than 1 billion rand. There are programs which are, it's a common thing that they will never spend budget allocated to them. And if we can look at that aspect so that we reprioritize and ensure that all the allocated budget is being spent rather than returning it back. Thanks.
Thank you, Boramore, for Honorable Hassan. Come in.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me start by also greeting our stakeholders. I think I wasn't able to do that. I'm hoping that we'll still hear from them because, you know, today is not really about honorable members. It's more about hearing from our stakeholders, and maybe also just to say, you know, there's never a space where it's not questions are not encouraged, or, you know, comments even are not encouraged. I think for us it's fundamentally important to hear from our communities, even if they may not think it's necessarily relevant, or they might be a bit shy. Please, because that's why we're here today. All right, so on to the presentations. I think that they were quite comprehensive. I'm a little bit concerned as well, and Ramulifo mentioned about the underspending, but Margot did explain, and I just wanted to cover that again. The underspending that was due to an accelerated spending process. Now, I'm a little bit confused about how that works, because we're always monitoring it every quarter, and I know this is quarter 4. So
Honorable Hassan, we have lost you. Unmute, thank you.
I think I might have muted myself.
Yeah.
What was the last thing you heard, Chair, just so I can repeat appropriately?
I heard you might have muted yourself.
Oh, shit. Okay. Anyway, let me start again.
No. You were on the, sorry, Mama Fasila, you were on the part when you said you monitor the quarterly.
Yes.
That's where you muted yourself.
Yes.
Thank you very much, PL.
Thanks, Simba.
Thank you. Anyway, right. So I was just saying the underspending, and I think it was in the first presentation that Margot put forward, around, yes, there is an issue of underspending, but there was also an explanation of the accelerated spending process. And what I was concerned about, I mean, now we're in quarter 4 and monitoring that different level of spending, I'm not sure how it's going to work out all in the end. And I just wanted to get further clarity on that. It might have been that I misunderstood, but I just want to confirm. The second thing is on infrastructure, which came in the budget a bit later, and some of the progress. I think that is positive to see. And I'm glad to some extent that the department and the MEC as well has really taken that on to try and push that. I don't think it's where we need to be yet entirely, but I'm glad to see that there is some specific progress that's going on with that. There was another issue I wanted to raise, sort of related, a little unrelated, but it's come up, you know, in some constituency work, and also, you know, it is people always raise things to us directly because there's this feeling that, you know, we must really hold their public representatives accountable. So one of the things that I've been requested to find out is around the protocol from DBE. And I recognize it's not just about a Gauteng issue, but I will ask it here. So apparently there's some protocols that have changed. So only the positives, I'm talking about COVID, and I'm talking about positive cases in schools, and now specifically some protocols, where only the positive case is told clearly to isolate, while the rest is not very concerned. So there's no major insistence that the friends isolate or that the whole class should be in isolation, but more importantly, that the particular teacher. Now, obviously, this is something that's been raised to me by community members. It may not be necessarily across the board, but there is a concern that's been raised, that the teachers themselves and the different friendship groups in the class itself is not being told to isolate for the requisite amount of time. So that's quite a worry. And we know that there was a Free State case where I think one of the matric pupils some time ago passed away from a COVID-related complication, and then 12 of that lady's classmates also tested positive. So there's just a concern among some of the schools who I interact with around that. And of course, we know schools represent our community, right? If a community spread is high, the case is high at school. So you can even see now that we're entering into third wave. So I just wanted to understand that insistence on isolation, the number of days, and just to check, you know, because often we'll have a good policy on the department side, and then the implementation is a different issue. So I would just like to clarify that. But other than that, I think it's quite comprehensive. And I do hope that our stakeholders will be encouraged to speak, even if it is just, you know, I think it can be an intimidating space, but not to be intimidated. We're all very down to earth here, and we'd be very, very interested to hear what our stakeholders have to say. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, honorable members. Honorable Bishop, you can come in.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Acting Chair. Yeah, I wanted to align myself with Honorable Fasia Hassan, because in our constituency, that's also being the problem in terms of the time span, in terms of how quickly action is taken when somebody is tested or detected to be positive, COVID positive, and then it takes the secrecy around it is what concerns parents in our community. That is not being announced to say that a certain person has or student or
Rosie,
actually
sorry, I'm going out.
pandemic.
Sorry, Mama.
But you can make the
Mama.
steak for
There's
I'll have it tomorrow.
Okay, I'll wait for the
going
steak.
If you already no, is it defrosting?
Sorry, Mama. Sorry,
Yeah,
Mama.
who's disturbing us with the steak?
She's going on a date that
She's
she's going
disturbing
out.
us.
Apologies,
Sorry, Mama.
apologies, apologies.
We don't want to hear the steak and the going out.
Yeah, come on,
Good luck.
branch and I'll have it on the stakeholder.
Good luck on the date. Honorable Dalton, you can come in.
Yes, can you hear me, Chair?
Clear, loud and clear. I hope she's not going out on a date with you. Thank you.
No, Chair. I think yeah. I'm also covered with the Honorable Hassan. I think our question is more or less the same. I'd like to hear what the department's procedures are concerning that. But we appreciate the presentations. Thank you, Chairperson.
No, thank you very much, honorable members. Honorable Mpisi, you can come in.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and I hope that date is not yours or Mukwebo's. But Chair, I am covered partly by members. My concern, Chair, is on the issues of infrastructure. There's a school that I always interact with the principal because the school has been under good leadership. Is the one in Raga Park. Remember the hall that was supposed to be fixed. I'm not sure how far that is process, but we were told that it was going to be fixed because not only is the school that is using that particular hall, but the community which is surrounding the school and which is taking care of the school are using that particular infrastructure, which is the main hall, which was severely damaged by some contractors. Maybe HOD and the team will respond to this because it has been a long time that school has been experiencing such a problem. Two, we know that there's a budget cut in some areas. And I'm looking at all the priorities as they were read by the CFO and the allocation of the funds there too. But I'm not satisfied in the area where we look at the infrastructure as it was presented by the president, as well as the Minister of Finance, for the economic boost in our respective provinces to assist the economic recovery of the country. So I think if they can at least maybe respond to that, which area really, but can that also be looked at going forward as to the issue of the infrastructure rollout and the refurbishment of some of the areas and schools. I think I'll be happy if that can be sorted out because that is our main priority. Looking at the challenges of COVID, I think we have to make it a point that that area is addressed to mitigate the risk and the challenges of COVID. So from my side, I think that is the area that Chair I wanted to raise. And another issue is the issue of the security in our schools. I know that this has been addressed in many ways, but there are a number of challenges, not only the security of infrastructure, but the security of learners. And you will be aware today, the National Department was launching the anti-bullying strategy in Orange Farm, where I am a deployee of. That issue is a serious issue, and I wanted to check with the department. Are they also prioritizing that particular area so that it can be attended to, so that we minimize the challenges of bullying and the destroying of learners by one another? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Mpisi. I'm not sure, what I'm ready for. I'm not sure if ever the hand is a legacy hand. Or maybe let me ask. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks, Chairperson. It was, but I just feel like just a point to commend the school infrastructure department that for a while they've not been spending their budget, but this time around they've spent their budget, and we want to, ensure that they continue doing in this work where they spend the all allocated budget going forward. So at least one program is, get to a point where we wanted it to be. Thank you.
You are being opportunistic. No, thank you very much. Honorable members, let's...
My hand is up, Honorable Chair.
Again, okay, let me allow you. Let me be generous.
Sorry, no, I'm really sorry. I would fail in my duty if I did not take this opportunity to thank the MEC and also the HOD in terms of the work outside of the committee that they do, which is part of their work. But if one actually calls them and one doesn't speak about these things in committee or in legislature, but one needs to mention it, that their expediency and the way that they react and get things done is really excellent. And I just wanted to bring that to the attention of everybody. And the stakeholders must hear it. Thank you, MEC, and thank you, HOD. Thank you, Acting Chair.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Dalton. Thank you very much, comrades. And I think maybe let me just round off by also just putting some of the issues across. Firstly, I think the department is defeating a provincial demon. There's one person who is unmuted. I can't see that person in mute. The department is defeating the demon of underspending, because there is this demon of underspending which is bedeviling many of the departments in Gauteng. That you have been able to spend 97% of your budget is a monumental success, and it should be applauded. And I think we should applaud that you've been able to spend 97% of your budget. It's quite impressive. I think Honorable Hassan, who are members who sit in a lot of committees, and I think this is the only committee that has spent so much of their budget, and this we want to thank you for. 97% is largely commendable. Another issue which I think we need to work with the department on is the issue that is relating to the vacancy rate, because the vacancy rates also remain one of the challenges that we face. And if we are seated in a province where you have a problem of unemployment, where people are going through some serious challenges of hopelessness and all sorts of things due to the failure of being employed and also because of unemployment levels in the country, we cannot continue sitting with this problem. And it will look like when we raise the issue of you spending your budget in the previous financial year, you were able to listen to us and you came up with ways to mitigate that. But then we still have serious issues of vacancies that have not yet been filled. And I think that we need to be given some sort of a strategy that you would use, that you will be able to begin to work on ensuring that these vacant posts that are existing from the 30th of September, that they are filled in time. There are a lot of people in this province, particularly those in the province, who are sitting at home, who are looking to be employed. When you go and you do FISs, one of the challenges that you face, they will tell you on the number of children that they have taken, that they have accepted in the schools, or who have been placed in the school through the system that we came up with. But then the learner teacher ratio still remains a problem, and at the heart of it is the feeling of vacant posts. So I'm asking that we deal with the issue. You still have a high rate of those who are acting in positions, because if people act for long, it's all on a particular position. It also is a reflection of the fact that you are failing to fill in vacancies. I think HOD, MEC, let's work around that both the provincial levels, the districts, and so forth. Let's work on this, come up with a strategy to ensure that our department does not become like the city of Tshwane, which has become a Hollywood, where everybody is an actor, everybody who works there is acting in that position. I'm also not happy with another issue. MEC, I'm not happy with the GOD spending. Combined expenditure on youth, women, and people living with disabilities can be 12%. So if we say 97% of your budget has just only been spent and that 97% is spent, which is good, we applaud it. But 12% of it can combine be spent on those interest groups. In our political language, we refer to them as the motive forces. The women, the youth, they are a motive force. And in this province, the majority of people living in our province are young people, and therefore we need to also ensure when we award tenders, when we do stuff, we must also look at this interest group and ensure that they are catered for in what we need to do. And as much as I'm decrying the issue of the vacancy rate, I'm happy with where it's sitting in terms of SMTs, because it's just sitting at 7%. And I can tell you, Honorable MEC, you are a leader of government business. If you go to other departments, it will shock you where it's sitting. I think you are doing well, but let's not have a vacancy rate that I want to arrive one day in a committee meeting and be told that all positions have been filled, and all those that are vacant became vacant as a result of people going on pension, or as a result of people resigning due to finding greener pastures and so forth. And that will really gladden my heart. There are a lot of issues that I would have noted. Oh yeah, there's an issue of in terms of it is worrying me that of all the schools that are projected to be built, only I think it's two. Only two have been completed, and then a majority of the schools are in the inception phases. Others, I don't know, almost over 11. There's a feasibility study being done on them. I don't know. Maybe the department will have to explain to us how long does it take to do a feasibility study on a school. And on the report itself, for instance, a school like Noordeg Primary School, your report says the status of the school is retention. Maybe if you can clarify what Noord-Hessig. Okay, Noord-Hessig. I know Hessig is a face, ne? Northern face. So Noord-Hessig, if you can clarify to us what it means, retention. So and also how can we have so many schools on inception phase and all sorts of things. I think we need to find a way that we work closely with the DID in terms of actually the building of the schools and so forth, because the lifespan of building a school is just too long. It can take 3 years to build a school. Lastly, on the budget, I thought that since we've been raising for far too many times the issue of this department not just being a department of basic education, but it's a department of basic education and youth. And therefore, we would have seen maybe some of the budget that begins to speak to spending on youth, or some money being sent to GCRA. Would have asked that we need to have a conversation between, so that we have a welding link or a correlation between GCRA and SEPA 1 million. GCRA, Honorable MEC, has proven itself to be GCRA MEC to be to be working, because they've been able to spend their budget. Even if you look at the brigades program, they've actually outdone themselves, and therefore it says to us that they can actually do far better if we give them more responsibilities. Would love to see see that happening, but otherwise we welcome the achievement. Oh, another issue, because it must not be MEC and Nicodemus issue. Maybe and issues that we just get on the media and all sorts of things. There is a report of the SIU that has come out, and perhaps maybe if not in this meeting, maybe there should be a meeting where we are taken through in terms of what is reported in the media and so forth, and the steps that the department is already taking in that. That report is damning on SCM personnel. It has exonerated you and other officials, but it's damning based on what we are seeing in the media. And I think maybe at some point, so that it does not become like we are just here just to cover up and we are silent about this issue. Perhaps maybe you MEC and the department, you can take us through the report. If ever it has been completed, or if it's not been completed, we'll wait for it to be completed so that we can indulge on it. And we want to thank you, MEC, because when all these things came up, you went out and you called on the SIU to thoroughly investigate these matters and deal with them decisively. Thank you very much. I think I will hand back to the Honorable Hassan.
I see one of our stakeholders has their hand up.
Oh, okay.
See it.
What is the name of the stakeholder? Maybe you can call it out and allow them to speak before the department and the MEC responds to questions.
It's Malungana TT.
Okay, yeah. Malungana, you can come in before the MEC and the department comes in. Malungana TT.
Hello, Chair. How are you?
No, we're doing very well. We're doing very well, Mr. Malungana.
Yeah, no, very much. I'm very much thankful for the presentation. It's quite comprehensive. However, this is what I just wanted to say. I'm one of the stakeholders. The budget is quite general and not specific. So at times it makes it difficult for us maybe to come in, because there may be specific issues that are individualistic to a particular school that you want to raise. But how comprehensive it is and general it may be, it makes it difficult for us to raise those issues. Because there are matters of special schools, particularly of those that are referred to as disadvantaged schools, which need basically the portfolio committee to look at, so that we are able to address the issues of learners who are disabled in such institutions. But the budget itself is quite comprehensive, and we want to thank you for having made this wonderful exercise. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Malungana, for welcoming the budget. Thank you very much. Honorable MEC and the department, maybe you can respond to some of the questions. Thank you very much. Mr. Malungana, you can mute. Ne?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Acting Chair Simba. Truly appreciate your guidance and support. And thank you so much, honorable members, for your questions, and Mr. Malunga for raising the question on budget. I'll try to respond to the questions, and if there are areas that I didn't respond adequately or appropriately, I'll ask the HOD and the team to respond to them. Firstly, let me appreciate the positive feedback that we are receiving from all of you in terms of our presentation. We take this kind of presentation seriously as a department, and we go all out to ensure that by the time we come here, we respond to the issues that have been raised or the request that has been deposited with us. So I'm quite pleased if members receive those presentations positively. Member Ramlifo, I share your frustration, and I think the team, they know. I truly hate underspending. I despise it. I really feel that it's unjustifiable, and there are no excuses. But as Member Makwele has indicated, at least there is a slight improvement. I think the last time when we were underspent, it was around 1.2. Now we've moved to 97%. I think it's around 600 million, if I'm not mistaken. The team can clarify that. So we are making meaningful progress to reduce underspending. And I really appreciate acknowledgement of Member Ramuli for that. Our infrastructure team, for the first time, they've galloped, and we appreciate that. But generally, as a principle, and I think Member Makubela is right, as a aid of government business with other MECs, I despise underspending. It's unacceptable, and where it exists, it must be condemned. And I will not want to, as a leader of government, speak to other MECs to spend their budget, whereas the department that I lead, or I have the honor to lead, is also underspending. So I take your guidance on that, and I really note your concerns, Member Ramli. It's something that I share your sentiments. I think it's the same sentiments that were raised by Member Hassan as well on the issue of under expenditure. On the DBE protocols on COVID, you know, it's some sensitive matter. I want to leave it to the team to respond to it. You're quite aware. I think that's the issue that Member Makubela raised on the ISIU investigations. When there are positive cases, how do we react now? And there have been many school of thoughts that the virus can't exist more than 72 hours, and therefore we should encourage people to self-isolate and identify that they've come in contact, so self-isolate, and it's only them that should self-isolate, and the rest of the school should proceed. It has caused confusion. I must be honest. I'm part of those people that are confused as well, and I acknowledge what members are raising. It's something that needs our immediate attention, our immediate clarity. And I'm very hopeful that we will get that clarity so that we can deal with it. Bishop, thank you so much for your positive feedback as well. But we have noted the issue of the protocols on COVID. And I hope people may respond on that. Member Jumbusi raised the issue of infrastructure. I know I went with the MEC for DID to that Eastern school. I think it's Uasrand War School, if I'm not mistaken, where there's a community or there is a hall that has been standing there for quite some time. I think before even our term. I know that we went there together with the infrastructure team of both departments. And we committed to attend to that matter. And I know in one in Teresan or in Bezo, we picked that up, and on the basis of that,
MEC, you have a horrible echo. We might have missed you for about 30 seconds. You last said in the reason.
I'm using a new gadget now. Can you just an indication if you are hearing me? Are you hearing me, Chair?
Yeah, now we can hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Migrated to another gadget, so thank you so much, Chair. So I was saying that it was during Interesano that the matter was also raised. Myself and the MEC for DID, we went to address a community meeting about that hall. We visited that hall and we made commitments for that hall to be fixed. So I'll check with my colleague at DID how far they are, member MPs, whether that hall has been finalized or not. The issue of security in our schools is quite clear now. That we need to come with new ideas. And we're piloting some CCTV and alarm system that we want to install during or through our full ICT schools, which is our high risk schools, where we've put the state of the art ICT that before they are installed and everything is installed, we put some security mechanisms, including CCTVs and alarms. I think there is a pilot project that is currently on. That's one way that we feel that it will assist us to deal with this matter. The issue of patrollers is quite clear now. The people that are coming to steal things in our school or vandalizing our school, they're highly armed. And we don't want to risk people who are unarmed to face those that are armed. So we're working together with the Department of Community Safety to utilize some of the enforcement agencies that they have within that department so that there is cluster patrolling and also they can respond when the patrollers are requesting backup as well. So it's one area member busy that we are attending to it. I want to go to the issues that were raised by the acting chair. And thanks, acting chair, of the progress that we're making on underspending. But as I've indicated, we might be at 97%, but that 3% in terms of financial figures is still quite huge. But indeed, we are making progress and we appreciate that feedback. As I fully agree with you on the vacancy rate. We might have challenges of people resigning, challenges of death and the sickness in terms of COVID and other comorbidities that majority of our staff members go through. But there's no justification in the face of the high rate of unemployment that we still have funded posts that are not filled. So we'll note that concern, Chair, and attend to it. I also take your concern on Jody. The expenditure is very slow. It's good on one aspect that we're struggling. To be at 2.9 or 2 point something on disability, Member Makubele, it has been a struggle. I think we are one of the few departments that have reached that in terms of spending and in terms of the actual figures. So we've done exceptionally well together with youth, but on other things of gender and other related matters, I think I share your frustration. Indeed, there is a problem in building new schools that we've only built 2 or in the last financial year. You know, when level 5 hit us, the infrastructure sector was shut down. So we had to re-establish the sector and re-establish things. But now that we've put so many schools on concept stage, I can tell you, we'll go back and we had a meeting with the MEC for DID. We'll go back to that popular slogan of opening a new school every month. I think we're on the verge of realizing that. And indeed, we used to, or DID used to take long, almost more than 36 months to build the school. But after our discussions with them, we really believe that will be attended and will not have the same challenges that we have. And the reason why I've got so many schools in concept stage or inception stage, it's merely because we are recovering from an era where we couldn't build even a single school because the sector was shut down. I've taken note, Member Makubela, on the work of GCRA. We really appreciate that. On the SIU report, we also welcome the steps taken, but we have not received the full report. And I said to the team, let's not have a running commentary along the investigation. Let's wait for the SIU to give us a full report. And on the basis of that report, we'll act. And I want to assure members here, this is something that has embarrassed us. It's something that's taken us aback. It's something that is completely unacceptable. And I can tell you, I'm combat ready to release the X. And it will be done before dawn. If I receive the report, I will act, and I will act decisively. But we've not received the report as yet. We've seen the developments, and we fully welcome those developments. And you are quite right that some of the things that are contained in the media statement of SIU are damning. But I'm waiting for the full report. As soon as I get the report, I want to assure you, members, I will act, and I'll act mercilessly without favor, because we can't allow this kind of things to dent the good work that we're doing in our communities. And we have people that think that they can behave in this fashion. So we will act, acting chair. It's just that we don't want to pass running commentary when the SIU is still investigating. So they've not given us the full report. As soon as they are, we will indeed, as a committee, be the first one to share the report with you. Thank you so much, Chair. If there are areas that I've missed, I'll ask the HOD and the team to clarify. I tried to cover as much as possible. HOD?
Now, thank you very much, MEC. May I request, there's a question that Honorable Hassan raised. I may answer it, but can I leave it on accelerated spending, because she would have liked to get a clarification. In simple terms, in my understanding, Honorable Hassan, is that let's take for infrastructure, for example, in a particular period and in the third quarter, for example, you would find that we would have overspent our money, that even the money that's in the bank, which would be dispatched only in quarter 4, is already utilized. So we have accruals quarter to quarter. So we overspend in one quarter, and when the other quarter comes, you would find that we already have had an allocation. But and I do know that that had happened in the context of infrastructure, but CFO and maybe Albert can also give a very, very clear response in respect of that. But the second matter that I think my colleagues would also expand on, MEC, is the issue that was raised by both Honorable Hassan and Honorable Adams in respect of the cases. What the standard operating procedures are indicating at the moment is that when there is a case, there are a number of things that a positive case that is identified. A number of things have to happen. One is that we need to determine the number of people or the close proximity that there would have been of a person that had been infected. That's number one. So it's in terms of the distance, whether, secondly, that the persons that were with the person for over 15 minutes and there were no masks worn at that point would then be the second aspect that they look at. And if it were to be found that the person would not have interacted, that there would not have been any extended period of time exposing others, you only then deal with the space in which that case would have been reported. Let's talk about a teacher, for example, that a teacher may be in a classroom, or they may be in a lab and they would not have interacted with any other teachers. Even if they tested positive, it is only those people that they may have had contact with
in very close contact for over 15 minutes within a 1.5 meter distance. And in that case, you then become a close contact. And that's why from an isolation point, they will say those who are close contacts, they must observe whether they are developing symptoms or not. And it is on the strength of that they will do. Where we have acted in the current context at school level is that you may know that we have had cluster outbreaks. And a cluster outbreak, that's when you have more than, say, 5 young people all testing positive in the same week or in the same day. In that instance, that's when we even move to an extent of saying, because we may not know where many of these would have interacted, we take even a precautionary approach that begins to, beyond the classroom, we take a precautionary approach of getting them to stay at home for a day or two, which then allows for deep cleaning to take place, and they can then come back. I thought those were the two issues I needed to clarify, but maybe CFO and Albert can add on these particular matters. With your permission, Chair. Albert?
Thank you. I think the changes in the protocol was based on some advice that came from the ministerial committee to say that you must have been in the immediate contact with an individual for an extended period of 20 to 30 minutes without a mask in that particular process. So that led to a lot of confusion on how you would apply it in determining whether a school or an individual needs to go into isolation because of contact. So the definition of what is a contact changed materially in that definition. And I think we are having a bilateral meeting with DBE on Monday, and we will raise it again. What it was premised on was the fact that if there was such an incident, that the Department of Health official would move in quickly to do the tracing in order to determine the extent of contact and whether that would require some kind of isolation. The second thing that we amended was to say that principals and SGBs don't have the right to close the school. It is only the HUD or the district director, as delegated by the HUD, can close the school, which means that it would have had to be escalated. The escalation would have been based on a report from the Department of Health official to say we think that the school needs to close or a group of learners need to isolate. I think what we would have to do is clarify the protocol on Monday. And I think as we're moving also towards the end of the quarter and the reopening of primary schools, we would have to issue a new protocol, even if it's a provincial one, improving on the clarity of procedures to be followed by a school in the case of a positive case that was in the school. The last point is that we also know from most of the cases that we've come across, it's becoming a bit more difficult to do the diagnosis at the screening level, because very often, from what we're picking up from the medical fraternity, is that the actual incubation period has shortened, and therefore we would have to be even more cautious on how we deal with this particular aspect. Thanks.
Johan, I see Johan, I think you wanted to say something.
Thank you, Chair, Honourable Chair. I just wanted to add to what the HUD indicated about the accelerated spending. I think the HUD has summed it up nicely in terms of the management of your cash flow per quarter. The bottom line is then at what you are looking at for a particular financial year. Just to indicate to you, Chair, that that accelerated spending is not as much an effort to spend, but an effort in order to catch up with service delivery. And we've had a bigger effort in this last year, due to the impact also that we had in COVID and the inability to spend and procure certain things during, especially the hard lockdown, but even after that. Therefore, one had to go through an accelerated program in order to facilitate the provision of LTSM, the provision of infrastructure, particularly in order to make sure that schools are occupational health and safety safe, and that it is a conducive environment for teaching and learning to take place. And you'll agree, and I'm sure that Member Mpisi will also agree, that one covers a tip of the iceberg in terms of that, the whole time limited to the budget allocation. So one can't necessarily just take funding that is allocated to compensation of employees and spend it in capital, and there's certain rules within the finance area. So was a deliberate effort in order to accelerate the service delivery from an infrastructure point of view, to have interviews which couldn't happen during the hard lockdown, to fill the vacancy rate, just as a few examples, to add to what the HOD said. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
No, thank you very much. HOD, I think have you covered all the questions?
Yes, Chair.
No, thank you very much. MEC, thank you very much, and thanks to the department. I also forgot to mention that I can see that you have started to work at the Holele school. I'm happy because it was a problem. The principal had our numbers now and again at LJ Holele. Now and again he will send us messages and so forth, and we did not even know what to say. I'm happy that there is work that is being done and all sorts of things. We are happy for that. We are happy that when we are in these committee meetings, we are not just going through the motions. I was listening to Honorable Ramolefo on Power FM while we were still here in the committee. I nearly called the Power FM to say no, but we're in a committee. This man is not raising what he's raising on the radio. That will be on a lighter note. We thank you very much.
You're correct, you must call him to order.
No, we can't direct how other members choose to embark in the politics. Honorable Albert is not in the committee, but will be very loud in the house because he will be playing to the gallery, and like the Pharisees, he will be flagellating himself for the love of the cameras. It's not how we are taught in the movement that we come with. There are stakeholders, there are members of the committee, the department. This is where all these things had to be raised, and then we can take them outside. Of course, these are public issues that we must raise. So I was listening to him, and I thought he will raise his hand and be able to deal with some of the issues. Maybe he will deal with them in the next meeting. Honorable Mukwebo, Honorable Mukwebo, the lady that you are with needs to be taken to. Hello?
Mukwebo is parading a female there. I'm not sure whether it's the wife or the girlfriend.
Yeah, but she must assist that lady with money for the hair salon because the hair don't look proper. No, thank you very much, honorable members. I think we have arrived at the point where we can release the MEC and as well as the department. We want to thank them for responding to all our questions. We want to thank them for the diligence in being able to decisively deal with all the issues that we have raised. We want to also congratulate them on the 97% spending of the budget and the work they have done. MEC, you are released. I'm not sure if Swallows is playing today. Let's
No,
pray
I'm going
they
to
don't
the
play.
special PC. I'm going to the special PC. Thank you so much for releasing me. Swallows is
No,
playing Sundown tomorrow.
You must invite Mkwebo to the PC.
Sharp, thanks.
You are
Parading wrong
really,
things on the screen there.
thank you so much, member.
you
Much
are released.
appreciated. Thanks.
Mkwebo, we don't want to see your people.
Okay. Honorable
bye.
members, we can remain. Bye-bye, comrades. Now, we thank you very much, members. The date of our next meeting, the date of our next meeting will be that Thursday, the 10th of June, 2021. It will be at 9 o'clock. The committee will discuss and adopt the following reports. The committee deliberations and adoption of the following draft oversight committee report. It will be a draft committee oversight report on the Department of Education's budget report for 2021 and 2022 financial year. It will be a draft committee oversight report on GDE's fourth quarterly report for the 2020-2021 financial year. And we will also on that day deal with the presentation by the committee researcher on the focus in intervention studies. So that's what will happen. I want to thank you, honorable members, for respecting the meeting and for arriving on time. And honorable MPC, we will put you and your family in our prayers so that your family member might go through a successful surgery tomorrow, and that all goes well. Honorable members, let's make
Thank you
sure
very much. Much appreciated, Chair.
No, you are welcome, Honorable MPC. Honorable members, we will also ask you to maintain social distancing, to ensure that you adhere to all the protocols. We still are battling with the invisible enemy. Thank you very much, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Simba.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable
Okay,
Chair.
bye-bye. Thanks, Philo. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, honorable members.